So, Paul,
Yes, sir.
I'm new to this podcasting and interviewing, but I have a question that it's from my own. It's from my own life. Master Leon died at age 102. He started when there was an emperor, last emperor, and went through the nuclear age up to the computer age. And if he came back, the one question I would ask him, I asked him a lot of questions. I used to bug him and mug him.
Yeah.
The one question I'd ask him, and I've been asking everybody, and it's a hard question, but it's a very insightful question, which is this: what is your happiest memory?
That is a great question. Well, it may surprise you. And then again, it might not. It was Christmas Eve, 1953. I was a little boy of 9, and my father and I, we were just like totally connected. I had a wonderful, great time with my father. And we lived in Paris at the time. My sister had been born a year earlier. She was born at Christmas, and she was
Wow.
just about a year old. And he wanted to go to midnight mass at this old French church. And so my mother was a little, she was kind of the disciplinarian, the organizer. Well, he's only 9 years old, and it's midnight, and my father said, no, I'm taking him to midnight. So we go to midnight mass, and there was beautiful Gregorian chant in those days, and the choir singing and all. So it went on long. It was a solemn high mass. Got out about 1:30, and then we're walking back. And by then, Christmas Eve in Paris, 1:30, all the streets totally empty, nobody in the streets. And the snow starts coming down. We're walking through the Latin Quarter where we lived, and the beautiful big snowflakes coming down on those ancient stone buildings. It was mystical. Mystical.
Wow.
Then we get back to the little hotel where we lived in. We lived in a little residential hotel. And I thought we'd go back and he'd say, okay, go off to bed, goodbye. And instead, pulls out a bottle of some kind of liqueur and a bunch of French pastries. And he said, we're going to have a réveillon. And a réveillon is roughly translated as a wake-up party. Or stay-up party, whatever. So by now it's probably 2 a.m. on Christmas morning. He had earlier in the day bought these fantastic Napoleon, the French pastry. And he let me sip a little liqueur, so I'm sipping liqueur, eating the Napoleon, and it was just great. It was a wonderful thing.
Wow. That is beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, so that's probably all in all my favorite memory.
That is wonderful. So now I'd like to ask you. I'm working on obviously this new medium for me, the internet and the social media and the whole thing, and I've been teaching classes on Zoom.
Yes.
And I've been really trying to study that craft. I taught in person for 25 years full time. I'd like to ask you your opinion. What do you see are the strong points and the weak points about teaching and learning Tai Chi, or martial arts or whatever on Zoom?
Yes.
If you would weigh in on my little personal quest.
Yeah, well, first a disclaimer, I've never taught anything on Zoom, so I don't really know the dynamics of that. But I've seen a lot of Zoom classes and things. So I think the benefit of Zoom is the wider outreach you can reach a worldwide audience. Certainly it's a great outreach, and it's a great way, I think, to introduce people if they're not quite ready to come to a physical class, or if they live too far away, whatever. A Zoom class is great because it kind of gets people in the door, gets people interested. So I think there's a huge benefit to it. Being a little bit of an old troglodyte and traditionalist, I also think that to get the depth of the teacher, you need to go to a teacher because it's a physical art. Now remember the great phrase of the Zen master Shunryu Suzuki, who said the Dharma must be passed from warm hand to warm hand.
Warm hand to warm hand.
Yes,
Yeah.
so I totally believe that. And I remember B.P. Chan and also Sophia Delsa to a degree. But I'll just mention Chan at this point. He used to teach on the body as he's, so he would literally manipulate your hips and the waist and put your elbow and he said to, and I wondered, why he was doing that. It didn't bother me. He said, Mr. Paul, I could tell you this 10 times, and the 11th time I'd have to tell you again. If I do it once on your body, you will get it. And that was so true, because then you feel it, and you feel the master's hands, and so really, and also I think in a good Zoom class you can pick up some of the chi of the teacher and the good presentation, but I also believe that you need to be in the energy orbit of the teacher, the direct vibrational orbit. And you know that Sun Liang, I mean,
Yes.
what an energy orbit he had.
Oh, yeah.
Was amazing. And
Yeah.
so I think there's both. So it would really depend on the student once the door is open, if they're then interested to pursue it, to try to find a good teacher.
So maybe like a hybrid where you got the basics on Zoom, but then you had to
Yes.
do some in person, and we don't know what's happening with the unspeakable thing that's happening,
Yeah.
that you need, I can't say those words, but you know what's going on in the world that's made us have to go to Zoom.
Yes.
At some point that's gonna go away, but, I like that idea of reaching a bigger membership, but I do believe that the transmission, how do you learn pushing hands without touching another person, and if a picture's worth 1,000 words, what's a touch worth? It's worth 10,000 words.
Yeah.
So thanks for that. I really do appreciate that.
Well, if I could just add a little bit.
Please.
I sold many, I would say hundreds of DVDs of my forums. And sometimes before ordering, someone would call up, do you think I can learn from a DVD? And I said, well, yes. You can learn the frame, you can learn the basics, you can learn the sequence, a lot you can learn. And so the things we're talking about, the direct energy, the vibrational transmission, even that you can learn a little from a video or a Zoom. But so I would tell them, yes, absolutely you can. But there's like another level. If you're really serious, you would want to find a teacher.
I mean, people would ask me, can you learn Tai Chi from a book? And my answer is yes, but not everything.
Yeah.
And I think that applies to Zoom. That there are certain things you can learn, but and it also depends on who's doing the learning.
Yes, very much.
Like if you already have had years with a teacher, or whatever, I think you can get much more information.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
but for
that's
someone-
a whole different story.
Yeah. Somebody who's just starting out brand new. There's that osmosis. There's the vibe. There's the feeling, the intent, and everything is in 3D when you're face to face.
And the other thing we have talked about from time to time is the community of students is a huge thing. So if you're learning from Zoom, that is good in all the ways we said. But when you're in a body of students, there's that brother and sister, the camaraderie, and also, as you've certainly noticed, if you're training, let's say just with a group of 20 people together who are reasonably proficient, and they're all doing the form, that multiplies the energy hugely.
Yes.
So I remember when I used to teach in Vermont, and we had Saturday morning, I called Old Timers Morning, because that was the people who had trained for 5 or 10
The senior
years.
students.
Seniors, yeah. And so I was always amazed. We would do a round, and I would feel like I did 10 rounds. I mean, it was just, if I did a round with a beginner's class, like, I mean, I love and appreciate beginners, but with the group of experienced players, you get the chi, and that's not something obviously you could get from from media.
One thing I do notice too is like when you're learning on Zoom, you know, people have to look at their computer screen. Whereas when we're in class, your peripheral vision,
Yes.
you get all kinds of cues and clues where we're at, and yeah, I mean, I'm really learning it. I had heard from a lot of different professors who were against Zoom and people that didn't like it, and yeah, if you're trying to reproduce exactly an in-person experience, it's not going to happen. But I really do believe that it's going to be another tool, for,
Yes.
especially for people who are teaching Tai Chi, how to you know spread the Tai Chi gospel.
Absolutely. And it's just a way to reach the people who, some people even might be intimidated to go to a real class. And I don't know about this. Well, you do a Zoom class, there's no intimidation. You can just do it and see if they want to open the door further. So
Yeah. Well, good. Thank you for that.
you're welcome.